So a lot of people have been using OpenOrienteering Map, a web-based application, to make some quick and easy orienteering maps. It's got various features I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. It is easy to use. It's great. It does have limitations though. First of all, you can't really in the format here adjust the map in any way. Secondly, its ability to do courses is very limited. You're looking at a very simple scoros basically. So I thought it should be easy to take this as a start point. Anyone who does a lot of mapping knows there's lots of ways to do this, but to take this and quickly move it through using free applications into PurplePen, which is a great application for some map modification and lots of course settings. However, I ended up with lots of issues with coordinate systems that would cause problems in the end. In PurplePen, control locations would be incorrect. The map would get shifted. So a lot of, and it may well be something I'm doing wrong, but I ended up coming up with a process that's quite simple and seems to work and may help some people. So I'm going to keep this very quick and easy. We're just going to center a 1/10,000 map here. That's all I'm going to do here. I need to get the PDF. I might use it later on for something else. I'll show you anyway, so just ignore the warnings. But I need to get that before I can get the JPEG, which is the image, the world file that goes along with it, and I'll get the KMZ because it's handy to test things. So that's all I need to do there. I would move those files, which I've already done here to make it easier. So there they are. So now, in OpenOrienteering Mapper, free application, great for mapping. If you don't have access to OCAD and so forth, this is probably the next best thing. Create a new map, 1/10,000, pick the symbols. First thing I do is the template, and that is the JPEG image I just produced. Now, it's automatically showing its geo-reference because it has that world file along with it, the JGW file, just a little text file. So I'm going to go with that. It automatically opens up the map geo-referencing table. Thing about a world file, it doesn't actually tell you what the coordinate system is, so you need to let it know. In this case, coming from the original application, it's an EPSG 3857. I'm also going to, in my case, which you don't have to do, is rotate my map for my declaration because I want magnetic north at the top of my map, and hit OK. This is just confirming that you want to use the same thing for the template that you just got that information from. Yes, I do. So there I have in my application OOM the map rotated, and at this stage I should be ready to go, but I'm not. I have one other thing I need to do before I start playing around. I'm going to go back to map geo-referencing, and I'm going to change this to UTM. 18 north is where I am. Don't have to touch anything else. Go OK. That's the trick that I found that seems to work through that, and one other thing I'll show you in a second. So now I'm in the condition where I can actually modify the map. I want my magnetic north lines on. Let's say just for fun, I want to put a tower at the end of this thing. I can do that. And of course, I can do anything else I need to do with this map, including add trails, change coloring, add objects, whatever is available. Last trick in this is when you save it as an OCAD, not an OOMap file. Just going to call that test. Again, I don't know why, but when you save it as an OOMap and you head into PurplePen, it seems to cause problems with some of the geo-referencing of the objects or the map underlying it. So you'll get a couple of warnings every time you deal with anything with OCAD. Just accept them all. If you need to make more changes now, you can make all the changes you want in here. But we're done with that to this extent. Now I'm going to PurplePen. Create an existing, or new event, I should say. I'm going to call that test. Check the map file. And that is the OCAD file. And then you work through the various setups, which you can change later on as well if you want to. So you don't need to worry about it here. And move this window over. And there you have it. If I want to make it look a little better from a point of view here, let's change the landscape. So there's the tower I put up there, magnetic north. I can now in PurplePen I can actually add more things like titles and headings and so forth to the map as you fit. But the main strength of this is I can now add a series of controls. And once I've got that, I can add courses, as many as I need based on the number of controls I've got. Call this course 1. Just add a control. And add a control. Another control. Where did I put? Oh, there it is. I can save it, but PurplePen saves as it goes along. So there's my first course. A couple of things to check. I can take and print out the map in a PDF or other format as I want. And you can see, there's our course. Everything looks good. And from a matter of the getting the KML, well, you have to use a couple of the applications that are available on the various utility sites. But within here, what I'll do very quickly, just to demonstrate, I'm going to pull out the version 3 of the IOF XML files and save that. And there it is. And just to validate, I'll do two things. There's Google Earth. I'm going to bring in the original KMZ. See, lines up quite nicely. And let's just get rid of that for a second. And I have my own little application here that I'm going to drag the XML onto. And there's my course 1 KML. I'll bring it on. And you can see there's that point and the finish and the one control there. So, and that matches up to where we laid it out in PurplePen. So there you have it. The only thing you cannot do at this stage is you cannot then, from PurplePen, if you try to pull out a new image file with a world file to make a KMZ using the application on OUtils, it won't work because it's in the wrong coordinate system. And if you try to change it back any way at all in OpenOrienteering Mapper, it just messes it all up. But there's a great new application on the console, the admin console, that allows you to very quickly make a KMZ. Or if you haven't made much changes, you can just use the one at the beginning. So that's essentially it. Next step is I'll put together a short video on how to improve the resolution to get something a little better out of the original files. So in the last video, I showed you how to use the web-based application or utility OpenOrienteering Map or Mapper to take their quick JPEG orienteering kind of map and then move it through OpenOrienteering Mapper and then to PurplePen, so you now have far more capability to make courses and and actually adjust the map as required, rotate it, add objects, and so forth. One of the comments I made earlier though was the JPEG that comes from the utility is actually fairly low resolution, and it may be fine for what you're trying to do. But if it's not, there are a couple of alternatives that take a little sleight of hand to use. But once you've done it a couple of times, it's pretty easy. So I take a look at these original files that I used previously that came directly from the utility. And you can see the JPEG, 328 kilobits. It's pretty small. It does the job, but it's pretty small. So there's actually two ways, without doing anything else magical, to get various higher resolutions. The first is within the KMZ. If I open it up, I'll use 7-zip, my favorite archive application. If you know anything about the KMZ, it's just zipped files. I'm going to drag the tile one over here out of it. Doesn't actually take it out of it. Close that off. And just to keep things simple, I'm going to rename it tile. You can see right away it's over a meg. It is actually, I mean, size doesn't always tell you how high resolution it is, but it is a far better resolution, much clearer, and the documentation even does state that it is. So next problem is, though, how do we use that? Because we had we have a world file from the original one, but we don't have one for this one, and you can't use the two together; they won't work. So let's take a look at the world file. And I'm not going to go into great detail, but it's just 6 lines of numbers. The last 2 are actually the coordinates. Without any coordinate system, you don't know what they mean, or you have to figure it out, but we talked about that before. Line 1 and line 4 are really the scaling or the density or dots per inch based on the coordinate system. So that's reflects indirectly the size of the file, or the image, I should say. So what we need to do is we need to say, how do we go from one to the other? Well, not that tricky, because it's just a scaling thing, and it actually works quite simply. First thing, though, I need to take this JPEG that came from the original one, and there's different ways to do it, but I'll just look at the properties from the file properties and the details, and it will tell me what size it is. So it's 841 by 595. That's in this little spreadsheet that I'll show you a bit more in a second. That's because that seems to be the default, at least for 1/10,000 maps that come out. So that's what's produced by the original. I'm going to take the new file we just got. Same thing. Check it. It's 1683. So I'm going to put that in here. By 1190. My little spreadsheet here has now actually just said that the first is half the size. So B2 divided by B3. So this one by the new one is half the size, same in the Y direction. This is really rounding error, so it's basically half the size. Now, I'm going to pull out, oh, I already have it over here. I'm going to pull out the world file that I got from here. Don't need to take the whole thing, but it's just easier to do it this way. Paste it under, oops, I went wrong there, sorry. There we go. Paste it there, and this just simply takes the line 1 and line 4. If you look at it, it's B5 times B8 in this case. So really it's taking the original and multiplying it by the scaling factor. That becomes your new world file. I can copy it and save it separately, or in this case, I'm just going to over paste it on this. And the only other thing you've got to be a little careful of when you save as is, first of all, we need to name it the same, which was tile. And it's at JGW. But a lot of word processors automatically add the text because it's a text file. And so when I go back here, then I've just got to adjust that. And I now have a higher resolution image file and the corresponding world file that I can use the same way I used the originals through the same process. And I'm not going to go through that now, but it works very nicely. Now, what's the third way, or the second way to get a higher resolution one? Well, if you have the right tools, you can convert the PDF to an image. There are some online tools. I'm not sure how well they work as far as resolution goes. I happen to have Adobe, so I'm fairly lucky that way. I can save it. There are settings that you can adjust just how, whether it's maximum, minimum compression, and basically how much the resolution is. I'm not going to worry about that now. I'm not sure how much of a difference it really makes. Again, I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it Tile PDF, just to keep it separate. And we'll save it. And there it is. Now exactly what I did previously, I can make a new world file for this one exactly the same way. Now here's one comparison I set up a little while ago just to show you the difference. Here is the PDF version of it. Here's the KMZ JPEG version of it, and here's the original. And there is a noticeable difference. I think in many cases you'll find the KMZ one is good enough, but it's certainly clear from the PDF. So depending on your needs, you can go through those extra steps. And in reality, to do it, it probably takes about 2 minutes. Quick run through again on all this spreadsheet does, and it's not the only way to do it. You can do it by hand with a calculator, is putting in the original dimensions of the file, putting in the new dimensions of the file, and then from there calculating the ratio of the, in this case you'll see it's the original over the new, so it's basically the scaling, and then pasting the original Word file on this side, and then all you really need to do is, for these two, line 1 and line 4, is multiply the original by the appropriate X or Y scaling factor. That's it. Play with it, double check it. Again, you could do this in your with a calculator as well. It's not that tricky. That's it. Hopefully that helps you. So just to finish off with a quick run through of everything, I decided to make a couple of courses from call it scratch. They're not great courses. That's not the aim here. It took me probably about 45 minutes to do all of this. Again, it would take longer if you're really concerned about what the course was, and we're not even talking about validation and so forth. So I just want to kind of run through the various steps very, very quickly. So I started with OpenOrienteering Map, the web application, picked my area. 1 over 10,000 seemed like it have enough. Whenever you do this, make sure you leave enough space if you need to manipulate, if you're rotating the map and so forth, depending on what your final scale. So you may actually start off with something larger so that you've got the space to play around. From there, with this, I produced the PDF, the JPEG world file, and the KMZ. And that was all I needed with that. So I took a look at the JPEG that came out of it, and not really great quality. So I used my trick with the PDF, took the PDF, turned it into an image file, and remade a new world file for it. Much higher quality, much better. I figured if it's going through and making a few maps, it was the way to go here. So then I brought that into OpenOrienteering Mapper, OMM. I did the stuff I've done previously. I wanted to rotate it, so I had magnetic north to the top. I didn't actually change much else in here. I felt I'd do anything I needed to adjust on the map. I could do it in PurplePen. But here's where if I wanted to add some trails or remap things, I could have done it. And I saved that as an OCAD, of course. So I brought that into PurplePen. And I started off by just setting a bunch of controls at likely spots. I know the area, I picked them, but again, the purpose of this is just to show you the process. And then I made a short course out of that, a long course, and then I also did one called No Controls, and I'll show you why in a bit. I also made a few changes to the map. I decided to, I wanted the main road to be out of bounds. I put a couple of other features here and there. Not much, but you can do a fair amount. Plus, of course, I added some niceties like the north magnetic scale and titles for the different courses, as you can see, as well as control descriptions. From there, I now exported a bunch of things. I exported an image file of no controls that I was going to use to make a new KMZ. I exported the IOF XML course files that I use my little converting tool, or you can use the online one obviously, to convert them into KML files. And I produced the PDFs of the two courses. So if we take a look, I took this, I mentioned the no controls course. That's because when you print an image from PurplePen, it will put the controls on it, which I didn't want for this. And then I used the tool that's available on the admin site. Actually, you don't have to be admin to use it, to make a KMZ. Works quite well. It's quick, maybe not 100% accurate because you're not really adjusting the map if it needs to be stretched or anything like that, but it's generally good enough. I'll admit in this case, I did it really quickly. It was a bit off, so I went into Google Earth with it and just adjusted it slightly and resaved it. But again, generally on the phone, it doesn't matter because you're not seeing all that much. So again, this, you notice it's got the scale and bits and pieces. I could have possibly used the very, very first KMZ from the original web app, but I did want to keep the markings out of bounds, so it really depends on how much detail you want of the map. Plus I wanted to put the scale and the magnetic north lines on it. So that is my became my KMZ for the final MapRunF. If I look in Google Earth, brought that KMF in here. See, it's not too, it's pretty close. Could do with some more minor adjustments, but it's good enough for what we want. I dropped my course 1 into here. See the points. I can take a look and make sure that they look good from the long course as well, and they're just fine. And so I'm all ready to go. And then I printed the 2 courses. Here's one of them as a PDF. And it's actually pretty decent quality resolution, quite usable for a quick event or a simple event. And that's it. That's the process. Couple of courses, 50 minutes maybe. The actual getting everything ready can be a little confusing, so make sure you're careful with your file names. You know, when I look at my folder, this is what I have left as per files that I used along the way. Particularly if you're remapping the world file, be really careful on your naming and so forth. And do all your double checks in Google Earth to make sure that everything is actually where it should be. There you go.